Hey there, Stephanie here from Michigan Alliance for Families. Thank you for tuning in. We are here talking about crafting your parent input statement. This is a great video to watch when you are preparing for your annual IEP team meeting, trying to figure out what to communicate with other members of your team and how to communicate it. If you have questions after you viewed the video, please reach out to your regional parent mentor, 800-552-4821. We are always here to support you. Everyone that works for Michigan Alliance for Families has a loved one who currently or previously received special education support services. We've all been in our own IEP team meetings where we're members of the team, and we are here to answer those questions and help you participate in your child's education. All right, let's dive in. So whenever we're talking about individualized education programs, we're talking about IEPs, we're talking about meaningful input, we're talking about crafting your parent input statement. We want to start with where the IEP is coming from. Where do individualized education programs come from? Why do we have them? They come from Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. This is our federal law all across the country that entitles eligible children with disabilities to a free, appropriate public education. One of the things that was added when IDEA was reauthorized in 2004 was this statement from Congress that said almost 30 years of research and experience has demonstrated that the education of children with disabilities can be made more effective by strengthening the role and responsibility of parents and ensuring that families have meaningful opportunity to participate in the education of their children at home and at school. It also says having high expectations, having them in the least restrictive environment, making sure that we're preparing them to lead independent lives to the maximum extent possible, all these important things. But one of the big things that it points out is this parent role and how having parent engagement really has impact on student success. There's a lot of data around this, and when parents participate in decision making, interventions are better aligned with their child's needs. That's because parents are in it for the long haul, that we are most concerned about our kids' long term success. Teachers are going to come and go throughout their education. We are going to be that consistent throughout their childhood and their adulthood that my parents are still worried about my well being. They still want me to be successful as a full-blown adult, and that long-term concern, that history that we carry, all of those things really impact how parent involvement helps our kids be more successful. We know the importance of parent involvement. We know the impact that that has on student success, and that's clearly laid out in the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, our federal law. So it's frustrating when we take a deeper look. Some studies have looked at just IEP documents to see how parent input is reflected in other areas of the IEP. So this study is from 2019. When they dug into just the documents, like what was in the program in writing, they found that 53% of goals, so about half of goals, related back to parent concerns. About a quarter, 23% of supplementary aids and services, so those are your accommodations and modifications. Those are your supports for the adult that support your child. About a quarter of those addressed a parent concern. And when they looked at the parent concerns, they found that a third had nothing anywhere else in the IEP to address that parent concern. So a third of them, they said what they were concerned about. It was included in the parent concern statement, and then nothing else is integrated throughout the IEP. So one of the things we want to be thinking about when we're sharing our parent concerns is also thinking about making sure that they're addressed. Not just that we've said them, but that the team has discussed them, where that may be where they end up documented in the areas discussed but not implemented, or options considered area of the IEP, but that they are still addressed, that we're looking at the parent concerns throughout the IEP. So your IEP, your Individualized Education Program, is an ongoing program for your student. Your IEP team has to get together to look at that program and develop the appropriate program at least once a calendar year, every 365 days. Who's on your IEP team? You are, as the parent of the child, not less than one regular education teacher if the child is or might be participating in a regular education environment, at least one special education teacher, a representative of the public agency, That's somebody who provides supervision. They know what specially designed instruction looks like and how to meet the unique needs of children with disabilities. They have some knowledge of the general education curriculum, and they know what resources are available at your public agency, which is your school district. We also need somebody there who can interpret results in plain language so that it makes sense, and anyone else at the discretion of the parent or the agency, which again is your school district. So those are going to be people that have expertise in your child, or what related services are available. Also, whenever appropriate, and I would say for some part of the IEP team meeting, this is always appropriate, your child should be participating in this plan about them. So maybe that's just coming to hear other people talk about their strengths when they're younger and growing that participation as they're getting older. One of the things that's really tricky with this group is that some of these people have a lot of experience writing and attending IEPs. That's part of why they're there. So that your special education teacher, your representative from the district, that administrator, they have a lot of IEPs they attend annually, and they have a lot of experience in IEPs. But like us as the parents and the student may only attend one IEP this year. This could be your first IEP. So we want to make sure we know what the expectation is for the meeting, for the team, and what information we want to bring to the table to be helpful, meaningful, collaborative participants. So as those collaborative participants, we can think about what we want to bring to the table for the IEP team to consider to develop that appropriate program for the student. So we want to think about the strengths of our child, our concerns regarding their education. We want to have current results from evaluations. We want to be really thinking about the academic, developmental, and functional needs of our child. I think it's really important that we know as parents, we are equal members of this team. This is not a school IEP team presenting information to us. We are a member of this team, that you have insight into your child that no one else does. You are an expert on your kid. And the cool thing about that IEP team I was just talking about is those other people are experts in other areas. So the general education teacher is a content expert. And the special education teacher is an expert on how to help learners and how to adapt. But we each have these areas of expertise we're bringing to the table we want to share with the other IEP team members. So please remember, you are an expert on your kid, you are an equal member on the team, and you have the right for meaningful participation in your child's special education programming. That your engagement increases your child's success. I encourage you to provide written parent input each and every single IEP. This is a tool to advocate for your child, that this annual IEP is developed to meet their unique needs, and you want to make sure that all their needs are being considered. So this is your opportunity to make sure that the rest of the team, including you, is talking about all of those needs to include them in the program. That when we're looking at what should be in the program, it's not based on your child's medical diagnosis, it's not based on their eligibility category, it's all about their unique needs. And your parent input in the IEP is your opportunity to make sure that the team is talking about and considering all of those needs. That your parents' concerns are going to help drive what the goals are for the upcoming year, what they're going to work on, what's that skill or behavior, what supports are going to be in place, what things are going to be adjusted to meet their needs. That these are the things you want to have be a part of the IEP to meet your child's unique needs. You're also creating a record of your cooperation and your involvement. That when you are having discussions where the team decides maybe that's not the best selection, no matter who has brought it up, we want to make sure those options are documented as considered but not selected in the IEP, and that we have that paper trail of what the discussion was as part of the IEP document. So what should be included in your parent input? Start off by thinking about what your priorities are for your child in the upcoming year. Hopefully these are going to shape the goals. That your job is not to write a measurable annual goal. You don't need to figure out independently how the data is going to be collected or how it's going to be measurable, what an appropriate target is. That the team is going to work together to do those things, and you should ask questions about those things. But your parent input should shape what those focus areas are. That you want to think about the things your child's really good at, what their strengths are, because we want to have this balanced, full picture of your student, what they're great at, and areas where they have needs. Think about what the school's already identified for areas of need that you agree with, and think about any needs that haven't been addressed yet that you wish were included. Make sure you're sharing those with the team. You carry your child's history. You know what has worked in the past, what hasn't worked. Share those strategies that are successful and share the things that don't work, because we don't want to keep reinventing the wheel. If we know a strategy isn't successful, if we know that our child is easily distracted in a busy environment, we want to share that to say, the busy environment does not work. A quiet environment does. And then you want to share your concerns. We want to think about behavior concerns. We want to think about medical concerns, academic, social concerns, independence concerns. That all of those things that you want to make sure are addressed anywhere in the IEP, you want to include in your parent input. You want to have this picture of your child for other members of the team. A couple of communication tips when you're thinking about your parent input. We want to be sharing facts, and we want to be sharing examples when we can as well. So here are the facts, and here is what it looks like. And this is something that's really useful in all team members. Is you are not at school, the school staff are not at home. We don't know what that looks like, and we want to share that picture. We want to share that understanding of the strengths and weaknesses of the student, what helps and hinders their learning. We want to have those fact-based statements and provide examples. Or if you have data, share the data with your team. They are going to share data with you as well. We want to have that measurement of where we're starting from. And data can be a lot of different things. We talk about data in some other videos, but it could be a observation log. It could be a handwriting sample. They're going to have different district assessments, state assessments, all sorts of different data that's a little more structured from school also. We may be looking at behavior records or things that we know at home are things that work. So we want to share those examples and data with the team. Use respectful language in your written communication. You're sending in your written parent input. We know multiple people are going to read it. We want to make sure it makes sense and that it's respectful. We want to prioritize what we're thinking about for the year ahead and that we are concise in our communication. I, not surprisingly, lean towards a lot of words. The first time I write my parent input, it's usually multiple pages. And then other people read it through with me. We trim it down a little bit. We make sure it's concise and gets to the point, because we want the whole team to be able to read this and get up to speed with us. They can't read a novel before our meeting. I encourage you to use bullets. They're very useful. They allow you to have those quick ideas shared without having to build out your full sentences. My target is always under 1 page. Again, we want them to read it before the meeting. We want everyone to be up to speed. We're going to share it at the meeting also. But when we get into multiple pages, that's too much information. We want to try to keep it under 1 page each year. There's cases where that's not going to make sense. You're going to have more information you need to share. But as a general rule of thumb, I would say keep it under 1 page. And don't write it and hit send all in that same hour. Sleep on it, come back to it, revisit, make sure it says what you want it to say. My child is 16 currently, and we talk it through, and I check if there's anything I'm missing or if there's anything that they think does not accurately represent them. So consult with somebody else, sleep on it, make sure you're revisiting it when you're ready. When you're putting this input in, your focus is on your child. Your focus is on your child's needs. This is not the opportunity to critique school. This is not the opportunity to critique staff. That we want to keep the focus on your child's needs, because the job of the IEP team, which you're a member of, is to meet your child's needs. So we don't want to say that Mr. Green is scattered and disorganized. We want to say, for my child to be successful, they need clear expectations and concrete written steps to complete work. We may want to say, I'm concerned that my child has difficulty when a system is not in place. In order for them to be successful, they need clear steps in writing, or they need visuals. What are the unique needs of your child is what you want to communicate. You want to stay child focused. So we don't want to attack the teacher. The teacher is absent all the time. Instead, we may want to say, I'm concerned that my child has difficulty with transitions, and constantly changing staff doesn't give the consistency to allow them to progress. So we're not pointing out staff faults. We're talking about what affects your child. Miss Peacock is always talking to my teen like a baby is staff focused. Making that child focused, where you're thinking of your student, you're thinking of your teen, I would like staff or teachers to have age-appropriate interactions with my child to help build independence. Just that turn of how you're presenting information stops people from being on the defensive, because if you're going after a person, they're going to respond defensively instead of collaboratively. We want to be talking about your child's needs so that everybody can agree and we can figure out how to do it and move forward. We're going to go through a few different ways that you can share your parent input in the IEP. There is not one right way, but I do want to start with this tool that's a spin one-pager, which is focusing on strengths, preferences, interests, and needs. This is something that you can fill out as a parent to share some input, or your child can fill out about themselves to share some input about them. This is really about helping the team get to know your child. So this is the I'm Determined one pager, and it's divided into these quadrants where you look at my strengths, my preferences, my interests, my needs. Again, spin, strengths, preference, interests, needs. We have all these examples that are in the presentation. These are actual parent input that we've gotten from families. We've removed any identifying information, but these really are what they shared with their IEP team. So the spin sheet is really a great tool to start talking about what your child thinks they're really good at or what you think they're really good at. Things that help them but are not necessarily needed are those preferences. Interests are how they spend their free time, hobbies, after school, what that looks like. And then needs are the things that they require to be successful. This is something that when my child was younger, we used to fill out together. As they've gotten older, they fill out independently. Sometimes they fill it out with pictures. There's all sorts of different ways to use this tool, but this is one of our favorites at Michigan Alliance for Families that we love for everyone to put their own spin on their plan and their program and their life. We're going to move pretty quickly through these examples. You are welcome to pause this video at any time if you want to read them fully. Feel free to do that. I just really want you to know there's not one right way to share your input, so we're going to look at a lot of different ways and a lot of different actual parent input. So this one uses a bulleted list to highlight strengths and weaknesses. What I want to point out on this example is that the parent provides these really concrete examples of what things look like. They don't just say in the strengths that their child is compassionate and empathetic. They give a concrete example of how they've seen that in their lives and how it's been impactful. Under concerns, that last bullet, they say not feeling accepted by peers who she says are too fast when she attempts to play with them. And that's usually in the playground setting where there's lots of things going on and the kids are running and yelling everywhere. This gives concrete example to the whole IEP team to then collaborate and come together to figure out how to meet this need where we're feeling more accepted by peers, where we're making sure that we're included on the playground and what that looks like. So these specific examples are really helpful to the team. This parent wanted the team to have some more background information, so they start with a brief history. Again, we don't want a novel. We want the key points that people can easily absorb so they have that needed information. And then the parent moves into strengths and weaknesses and spends some time talking about what works for the student. I love that in how to support, they start with the key to building this relationship is that he needs to feel safe. That they start with the most important thing first. So I think it's helpful to see what this looks like with this direct language of what they need. And then the closing thought sets the stage for the year. That it reminds the team that kids with disabilities, and this kid specifically, want to make friends, learn, do well, and be liked. It makes it clear that the parent is available and interested and expresses that gratitude, that appreciation for the support that the student is going to receive, because we have these high expectations for our kids and for our school teams. This example structures around what should be included as part of the present level of academic achievement and functional performance statement, that we want to know the strengths and weaknesses of the student, what helps and hinders their learning, um, and then what the parent concerns are. We really don't want just a list of concerns. We want that useful insight that you have that you can share about your child, that you know your child best, and we want this full picture. I think this parent did a great job of providing a lot of information in a quick and readable manner. And this parent input closes with the parent concerns. And one of the things I want to point out about the parent concern here is that it's not just a list of um, things they're worried about, but it's questions for the team. So the concerns may include like how to get content ahead of time so the student can participate in relevant conversations or experiments in science and social study. That we want to be able to tap in to the expertise of the team to be able to find out if there already is a plan or how we develop a plan. So you can see a lot of different questions that are actually listed in parent concern here, including how do we scale back the aid in areas where the student is successfully working independently and participating in school. That we want to make sure that we're building that independence. How do we do that? So those how questions, how do we help? What does it look like? What are our options? How can we as a team are really important when we're thinking about what that individualized education program looks like. So those are great parent input questions. This one is a little bit more simple. This form was provided by the school with these prompts. My child is good at, my child struggles with, I am concerned about, questions I have about my child's education, and I would like to see my child make progress in, just kind of like that priorities question. So these questions, these prompts are really helpful to start from. I want to highlight that this parent shares that their child struggles with sharing information and that they don't know what goes on during the day or what the child has learned. And remember that this parent input should be shaping and defining the needs that are being addressed by the IEP. So the IEP team may not know that that's an issue for the child to not be able to share at home. Maybe they're an emerging communicator. How are we going to make sure the parent knows what's going on at school? And remember, we can write in those supports for the adults that support the kids. So we can write in a communication log. We can write in a worksheet where the student is circling things that happen during the day. We can have, maybe there's a classroom newsletter that's already standard in the classroom. We still want to have it in the IEP if it's a specific need for the student, because next year it's going to be a different teacher and a different team. So we want to make sure those things that are successful are carrying over year to year and that those needs are being included in the program. I love this one because it really does start with the number one focus. It starts with that big concern, that big picture, and the parent references research and data to drive the discussion of the team. Number two is setting those high expectations, that we expect these things of our student and we want this in their IEP. The remaining items are really tapping into the knowledge of the other team members, that we as parents are experts in our kids, but we're not experts in all things. So we want to lean into the expertise of other team members, that we can bring our questions for them to be able to be a part of the brainstorm. We don't need to come with all the answers. We don't need to come with these specific demands. We need to bring our questions and concerns and our child's strengths and weaknesses and what helps and hinders their learning to the conversation. So we can brainstorm as a team to figure out how to best support the student. Again, this parent also closes thanking the team. I do think that appreciation piece is valuable for the team, that we are all coming together in the best interest of my child, and I appreciate that. This example is student input. We started off sharing that spin sheet, which can be student input also. I just also want to remind you there's all sorts of different ways to share your child's input. So it can be included in your input. We typically, personally, we share a second page where I do one page of parent input and my child has one page of input that goes into the IEP that we share. Some years They've shared their spin sheet. Some years they've shared pictures that they want the team to see about what the rest of their life looks like so they get a better picture of them. So some years there's words, some years there's images, some years there's both. There's all sorts of different ways that we can share that student input and what the student thinks they're good at and what the student wants to focus on. We've seen a few examples structured with bulleted lists of strengths and weaknesses. This is another one that's similar. I love this example because of the paragraph at the end, that it clearly states the vision the parents have for the child, the high expectations, and the support that the child needs. Parent input is often at the start of the IEP team meeting, so it's where the discussion starts from. And I think this parent did a really great job of setting the lens that the team's going to see their discussion through. So they said it's our vision for our child, that she is included fully with her non-disabled peers in the least restrictive environment. We want her to live a life of choice. We examine accommodations and modifications that can be put in place to help compensate for her challenges. Furthermore, it is our vision that everyone she come in contact with hold her to a standard of high expectations and supports her shortcomings instead of limiting her due to them. I really think this sets the stage for the whole conversation of the IEP team meeting. There's lots of different ways that we can communicate. We have used this tool in the past. We know a lot of people that have found this to be a really helpful way to communicate the long-term expectation that the school is going to focus in on that annual IEP. They're going to look at what the goals are and priorities are for this upcoming year. As family members, we may want to communicate what we want life to look like. And this is a really great tool to use in that conversation. That this purple box is the vision of what I want for the future of my child. I want them to be physically and financially secure. I want them to be able to express wants, needs, opinions, and thoughts to people who respect them and to listen to others with respect. The red box below are things that I do not want. When I think about what I'm worried about the future, the direction I do not want to head, I don't want my child to be alone and not engaging with others. I don't want them to be in poor health. I don't want them to be babied because of misconceptions about their capabilities. Then when we talk about right now and what things we're putting in the current program, we can have this, again, frame our thinking where we're saying, okay, does this take us towards the vision of what we want or what we don't want? So when we're talking about what we're going to do this year, we may want to talk about that parent we just saw that wanted the adult support faded for more independence, because fading the adult support heads them in the direction of how to ask for help when help is needed and knowing that everyone needs help instead of being babied because of misconceptions about their capabilities. So we can have this frame our thinking and our discussion around what we want to have in this annual program for the long-term vision of the life trajectory and the life that we want for our kids. This parent opens with their gratitude and points out some of the great growth they've seen in the past year. Then they discuss some areas they would like to see more focus, and they provide examples of what it currently looks like and what they want that focus to shift to. The questions or concerns include that question of meaningful engagement in general education. That this parent is not in the classroom, doesn't know what that classroom looks like. They don't want their child to be a warm body physically in the room. Is there a metric? How are we ensuring that the child is truly included? And that's a really great question for the team of what does that engagement look like in their learning environment? What does that belonging look like with the group, socially, behavior, academics, all of those different areas that we're thinking about? How can we make sure that our child is truly included in their educational program? We've seen some very lengthy parent input statements. This one is short and effective. It lays out the primary goals and keeps the focus on the student and the purpose of education. that education in our society is intended to prepare our kids for their future as adults. So we're preparing for post-secondary education, so education after high school, employment, and independent living. And this parent keeps a focus on that preparation for their student. So our dream is for our student to become as independent as possible, to be social and have friends, contribute to society, and to be an accepted member of the community and be happy and safe. Again, we're setting the stage for the rest of the discussion so we know what those long-term goals are, because we are the experts on our kids and we carry their history and we hope for their future and plan for their future. I know we moved pretty quickly through these examples. Again, feel free to pause the video and take a look at any of these you want to read a little bit closer. But these are here to show you there's all sorts of different ways to do it, and that you want to do it in your authentic voice where you're sharing this valuable information with the other members of your IEP team. I'd like to spend a little bit of time talking about what some good surprises are. I love coming home. I'm going out of order. I'll go in order. I would love an all expenses paid vacation. I've never had this be a surprise, but I think it would be a spectacular surprise. I do love coming home to dinner that's already ready, or coming downstairs to dinner that's already ready without me having to do anything. I love skipping. What do you want to have for dinner? I don't know. What do you want to have for dinner? Though when we can skip that, it's fantastic. That's a wonderful surprise. I do not want surprise information in a meeting that I have never heard before. I don't want any gotcha surprises. Nobody wants to be blindsided in a meeting. You want to come to a meeting knowing what will be discussed and being prepared to talk about those topics, and other members of your team want that also. That just like the school has nothing to gain by waiting for your IEP team meeting to surprise you with something, you also have nothing to gain by surprising them. So if you are going to a meeting and thinking of requesting a one-on-one aid, or thinking of asking for something different that we haven't talked about in the past, we want to give the heads up that we're going to have this discussion at the team meeting so they are prepared to talk about it. If you have data to bring, you can share that data. That there's always an administrator present in the meeting who has the ability to make decisions. They should know what is available. They should be able to commit those resources. If the person who is wearing the administrator hat in the meeting says, I'm going to have to check, we're going to want to revisit who is at our IEP team meetings, because there needs to be someone acting as administrator in the meeting. Remember, we talked about the IEP team members. They need to have the power to make those decisions. They need to know what resources are available. Let's talk about some things we can do before the meeting to prep for the IEP team meeting. Sharing your parent input. Whatever format you choose is the best way to share your input. Share it with the other members of the team in advance. Not just with your special education teacher, not with the person that's facilitating the meeting, the whole team. So that everyone can come from that shared starting point, knowing what you want to talk about, knowing what some of those priorities are. We're still going to talk about it in the meeting, but sharing it in advance to make sure that everybody's starting from the same page where we have that same information. Same thing, other direction, ask the school team if there is a draft of the individualized education program that they can share with you in advance. They are not required to share this with you in advance. They're not required to write a draft in advance. But if you want a couple of days to review it, make sure you're asking a week or two in advance so that they have some time to develop it, if they're going to develop and share a draft. So ask for that draft. If there's not going to be a draft ready, ask for their input. You can ask for it in the same format that you provided your input, where everybody's coming to the table from the same vantage of, here are the strengths and weaknesses, what helps and hinders learning, and parent concerns or school concerns or data, where we have each other's input we can talk about and think about in advance. Also request copies of any current evaluations so that you have the time to review those. And if you get them and they don't make any sense, remember that there's going to be somebody in the meeting that their job is to explain those evaluations, and their job is to do it in language that makes sense. So if you start to dig in and you realize you have a lot of questions and you're not sure what it's supposed to mean, that totally makes sense. Make sure you're bringing those questions with you to the meeting and then seeking out that understanding, because their job is to make sure that you understand. At the IEP team meeting, I encourage you to bring a physical copy of your parent input that you can check off as things are addressed, that maybe you're just bringing your list of concerns and you're taking notes on the discussion, what the concern is. That you've addressed it, you can put this check mark in the second column that you see on the screen. What action is going to take place to address the concern? Who is going to do that? And when we're going to hear more about it. This is one way to organize your notes during the meeting. You can also bring somebody with you and provide them this list and have them take the notes during the meeting so that you can be actively listening and participating in the conversation. So make sure that we're capturing the discussion and then that you're taking notes or someone else is taking notes of what's discussed. But I also really think bringing someone else with you makes a big difference where you're able to stay engaged and they can do that capturing part. One of the things I think people get stuck on when they're feeling contentious about IEPs. We're not fighting, we're not on teams, it's not the school versus home, and we are going to have disagreements. And disagreements are not disrespect. That we can disagree and figure out the best option and do that in a respectful, collaborative way. That we are not going to see things the same way. We are going to disagree. That is not disrespect. That we really want to be hard on issues and soft on people. So we're meeting our child's needs, and that is the priority. That is the shared goal of the whole team, is to figure out how to provide a free, appropriate public education, FAPE, to the student. The IEP is the offer of FAPE. So the whole goal of this IEP team meeting is to provide that free, appropriate public education. As I said about evaluation information, if you don't understand something, say something. Ask. Their job is to make sure it makes sense. You can ask them to explain it again and ask them to explain it again until it does make sense. These are some really great questions for understanding. What does that look like? How are we going to know if the plan is working? I think I heard you say this. Is that correct? I'm not sure that would work. What are some other options? Or, I see this at home. Are you seeing that at school? And if the answer is ever, we can or cannot because X policy, always ask for the copy of the policy. That remember, the individualized education program is to meet your child's individual needs. And we want to make sure the team is exploring what is needed for your student. After the team meeting, we want to read the full document. We want to make sure we get that from the team. Is your parent input accurately reflected? Is everything from your notes or from the person that you brought with you's notes reflected in the document? Check that the options considered but not selected are documented as well, that they included the things that were part of the discussion that may not have been chosen to be included in the program this year. Remember, if you disagree, you have rights within IDEA. The Individuals with Disabilities Education Act lays out dispute resolution options if you still disagree with what's in the IEP or with how it's captured. And remember that we're all human, that we are all, again, trying to help this child be successful, trying to make sure they're getting their needs met. That is the goal of the whole IEP team, that we want to be kind, that we know no one got into education to not give students what they need or not help students learn. So we want to be appreciative of our team members and thank them for their time and input, and remember that they are human beings that are trying to do their best also. I hope this information was helpful. Again, if you still have questions, please reach out to your regional parent mentor. They live where they serve. They all have a loved one that previously or currently has an IEP. They have this lived experience and training and knowledge and want to help you. So don't hesitate, 800-552-4821. Or if you have a question, you can email info@michiganallianceforfamilies.org. And there's tons of information on the website at michiganallianceforfamilies.org also. If you want to connect with us in different ways, we are active on Facebook and Instagram, and you have found the YouTube channel. You are here watching the video. There's lots of other videos in our YouTube library that you are encouraged to check out. We have our 800 number across the state. We have a statewide Spanish-speaking regional parent mentor. We have a statewide Arabic-speaking regional parent mentor. We are here to support you. As you have questions, please feel free to share information with others as well. Michigan Alliance for Families is an IDEA grant-funded initiative of the Michigan Department of Education, Office of Special Education, Michigan Department of Lifelong Education Advancement and Potential, and Michigan's Federal Parent Training and Information Center, funded by the U.S. Department of Education, Office of Special Education Programs. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great day.